All right, since my partner's still at her sister's, I guess I'm left to talk to myself. No, I want to talk to you. Yep. So buckle up. We're going to keep talking about Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. This is part 3. Whoa. And actually, when I rewatched my video in part 2, I actually like how I said, "Oh, they probably didn't read it." See, that's right. That's an example of how we have something in our head. It's not necessarily correct. It's like definitely like we're thinking it's definitely correct. No one read it, but maybe they did read it. After all, Microsoft does say that they read all the comments, so maybe. Um, yeah, it's really lovely how the game is softer. Um, Interestingly, it's more hardcore at the start. So there are again 6 worlds, and I would say it's pretty hardcore in the first 2 worlds, especially in the second world or the second chapter, if you will. I should say chapter actually. That's where actually the horror reaches its climax, and that's in like the first 2-3 hours of gameplay. It's like a 15-hour long game, and if you can get through that segment, you'll know what I'm talking about as well. When it's, but I love how they did it. And like at first, I was really scared, and then when I played that area again, I just appreciated everything like to bits, to bits. Um, because so in, and I want to touch on this. So in chapter 2, I love how they did it because so that they were talking about like these new enemies, the Draugr, and oh, yes, they're so nasty. Well, definitely the way they do chapter 2, it is the most nasty in the whole game. And but see, I've got my own take on this, um, which is again going into the psychosis element, but more into I think how people are, well, at least how I sometimes am, which is where you just where I am dreading that something is coming, and it comes, this dread comes from living in this world where there are so many unknowns, and so I've always had this like fear that something is like on the horizon. And the thing is, in chapter 2, the thing is, it's not on the horizon. You're like neck deep in it. So it's nighttime, and you can't, this is what I love about it, and you can't stop walking into it. So, this is like terrible. You don't want to go further in, but you can't stop going in. And so I kind of think of that as like the brain like pulling you into it, and like when you have negative thoughts but you're being sucked into it, and you just have to go in even though you don't really want to. You're like, yeah, I'm in the spiral. I'm having all these negative thoughts, but I'm being sucked in. I can't just walk away. And it's like that in chapter 2. I think it's done really well. So that's how I think of it. That's not, see, this is the thing. I don't really see the actual game. Like they've got the Draugr in the camp and they're doing a ritual, and you're like approaching the camp from the outside, and you slowly work your way in towards the center of the camp. But I kind of think of it as in these are just like we've got this negative thought, and it's like we're on the outside of it, but it's kind of this negative thought is getting closer and closer to us. Oh. That's how I think of it. I don't really care for the Draugr so much. The last time I went in there, just a little disclaimer, I was playing on the highest difficulty. I managed to get through it all without dying even once. So I was quite proud of that because there's quite a lot of gameplay in it. Once the Draugr decide that then, like my fabulous company, well, they regretted that, that's for sure. Um, and why was I replaying it? And this is another point where this is again where I was experiencing the 10 out of 10. I wasn't just merely playing it again and trying to find the hidden trees, because they got these hidden faces, which are like rocks that look like faces, and this is like the hardest achievement to get. And then if you stare at it, the face disappears, and then there's a tree behind it. You get this dialogue from the tree, which is really good as well. Um, so although it's true, I was looking for those for that achievement. It's 100 points, the hardest. Less than 2% of all people have gotten it, or maybe now it's 2%. 15% of all players have completed the game, and 2% have done this particular achievement. But what I was really doing primarily was I was using the photo mode. It's really good because, again, when I talk about how it's an experience in your mind, then you don't, strictly speaking, need to get to the next section or just beat the game. You know, you don't need to speed run it so that you can get 1,000 gamer points um, and get the Guinness World Record of having the highest gamer score. Um, it's about the experience. So, and what does that mean for me? For me, it means also photo mode. What I would do is, when just the visual aligned, I would just basically freeze the game, go into photo mode, and then use some filters. And the thing is, I would just stay in the photo. Like, as in, I'd experience that. Like, a bit like staring into a painting. And then I'd also save the shot. Then I'd transfer the pictures to my phone. And I've got quite a lot on my phone because, yeah, Xbox deletes photos over time. So one of the things I really liked about the photo mode, which was unique, but it's true, it's also in theme with the game, is you can add lights. And the thing is, if you place them in certain spots and then you dim the light of the light source, it's almost like a fairy or a sprite or a spirit, because they go into this in the game where, again, it's like there's something there. Only you can see it. Only you can give a meaning to it. And so sometimes I would put like a light source, and it would just kind of enrich my own narrative of the photo that I've got. And yeah, and one of the things, because I also watched the developer, like it was like a 25-minute segment where they talked about Psychosis. One thing I would actually want to point out there, I'm not gonna like talk about all of that because I want to be respectful to what they said. But one thing I want to single out is the clinical doctor says, well, most of us, like, it's not imagination. And okay, fine, it's not imagination. But he goes, it's not imagination because it's, for people who have an imagination, that's a vague feeling. His words, a vague feeling. And it's like, so the game developers, the writers, people who produce Netflix, they've all got vague feelings, like just a little nothing. So that's what I'd want to point out. Like, when I create a photo in the photo mode and then I look at it, to me it's very real. Like, the graphics are amazing, and I really feel like I'm there. I I used to do a bit of writing. I would not describe it as a vague feeling. Um, Even though I always understood, I want to say, I've always understood, like, that fiction is fiction. I've never been able to bridge it. Like, I've never been able to think, like, demons could be real, ghosts, even aliens. I have a hard time. And the thing is, I'd like to believe all of that. I'd love to believe that I'm a wizard and I could just, you know, you see that, like the magic. I'd like to believe all that, but to me, I draw a line like straight down the middle. Like, this is fiction, this is reality. But with the fiction, I still see it like it's real and it's not a vague feeling. And I'd encourage people to interpret the game like it speaks on many levels about any type of person, I think. And I think that's great. Again, I think it's so wonderful. I mean, I can't relate to like how Senwa can hear voices. I love how they did it. Like I saw it. Like they have like two women. They walk around two microphones. Um, it's great. You know, I don't really mind when two women are talking. Let's hope my partner doesn't hear that. But she might not go 10 minutes into it. We could be fine. Um, and and so they, what was I saying? That they talk quite a bit. Oh yeah, to you. And again, I've never had voices in my head, but the thing is, again, I've done some writing and somehow it got written. I can tell you, I promise you this. Sometimes I don't know how the sentence got written. It wasn't planned, and then it just happens. Where did it come from, right? I don't know where it came from. I swear to God, like once when you get like paragraph after paragraph written, I don't know where it comes from. And then like what should I say that, what I wrote, that this was an alternate voice. Like when I'm writing for a character in the novel. Oh, it's not my voice, it's a different voice. Um, so I do find the topic very interesting, but I do feel it also overlaps with things like professional writing, which I'm like, well, you've got your second voice or a third voice. Um, it's like, um, I mean, I used to before I had my partner, met my partner. I used to actually talk to myself, but it was to battle loneliness, and I would like to give this second voice authority because there was no one else to talk to, basically. That was why. So, but in that sense, you can see how it's sort of like very close to how they define psychosis. Well, there's a second voice, and this voice is like definitely there. Well, anyway, I'm not dismissing it. I know it's real, and but I just want to broaden the narrative a bit, and just again talk about how everyone can enjoy the game. I've never been scared of the topic. I know it's like meant to be like very serious, like as in person has it, they could, like God knows like you know but again, I've always lived in fiction. I've always have been big on it, and so yeah, I'm not dangerous just because I'm big on fiction, right? And I'm not negative just because I enjoy living in the fictional worlds either. And this is where in the previous video I said, well, does it have to be always so negative? Because I don't see how it's mandatory. Um, Nintendo once for me famously said that like when they have all these like violent games that the developers are limiting the expression, that the expression can be much broader than just that narrow um, range of expression. And indeed, in Senua, they mention her partner, her Dillion, who isn't in the game and who's not alive. See, it has to be negative. Like, why can't it just be someone who is in her life?